some other places. And he was saying one of the things he sees in applications with students from India to our program at Indiana State is that they talk a lot about what they've done and all of their qualifications. I am qualified to do this and this and this, and I have this background. And I said, yeah, what's missing from that is why you should care, right? It's got to be that, you know, I've done all of this, so I'm the perfect match for your program, right? Because I will do well in your program and make you proud of me, you know, and I will, you know, bring your name, you know, further out to the world when I graduate, right? You want students like me. You know, that's got to be it. Now, the Chinese students, on the other hand, kind of go the other direction, because what they will do is brag about themselves, and I don't mean brag in a negative way, but they will also talk about their accomplishments, but then they will also make kind of claims about it that's sort of telling you, you want me, you know. So they will say things like, I was the best of my class, and so, you know, I will be a very good student for you. And they're too, for a U.S. kind of writing, they're too forward, too much, what's the right way to say that? Almost giving you the answer rather than letting you make up your mind about it, you know. They can't claim that they're going to be the best for you. Sometimes also in reading the claims, they're a little bit, you know, they'll say things like, you know, I know I was the student my teachers liked the best. Well, I'm making that one up. But that's the kind of thing they might say. And you can't say that about yourself, because you can't prove it. You know, you have to be careful about the claims that you can make, and they have to be proven. We'll get to that. Okay. So the main point is really, really important. And then the whole way of writing, no matter what you're writing, is always going to follow that along. You cannot do anything else in the paper that's going to bring up other points or other claims. So, what's a good thesis? Well, it's got to be a claim that can be supported or falsified. You never prove a thesis. I'm reading right now a dissertation one of my students wrote, but the first 3 chapters of it that I took with me on my computer. So it's sitting over there. And he's a student from Korea. And he keeps saying something like, this research proved something. And I keep crossing out proved and saying research proves nothing. You can only disprove. You cannot prove. You can confirm, you can support, but you can't prove. You can't prove. So the other thing is, it cannot be a fact. A thesis could never be what Mumbai is the business capital of India. I mean, if that's a fact, then you know. You can't prove it. It's not a really workable thesis. And it can't be based on preference. Mumbai is a better place to live than Delhi. People have preference about where they want to live, right? And, you know, I've heard people argue over whether, you know, better places to live are, you know, New York or Chicago or something. And it's like, you can't prove that, you know. It's where you want to live. It's like proving, you know, which is a better flavor, chocolate or vanilla. You know, well, I prefer chocolate, but you know, but there are people who prefer vanilla. Again, a thesis has to be narrow, like the topic, and it should be interesting, because if you want your readers to read it, this is particularly true in the business world. I think it's more true in business than it is in academics. Because in academia, I don't have a choice. I have to read every paper my students write. And sometimes they're not very interesting. You know, when you're reading the 20th paper about something, it's kind of difficult to get excited. Right? But in business, you don't have to read everything. If somebody's giving a business proposal or any kind of correspondence between 2 businesses, they have the perfect option of, sending back, no thank you, without reading it, right? I'm not supposed to, does that happen? Yes. So for you, it's even more important that the thesis has to be interesting. Just has to be something they want to know about, a new way of doing something, or a new perspective. Okay, this is just clearly pretty easy. Building a house in Mumbai is too expensive. No. The economic situation in Mumbai has affected all levels of the housing construction industry. I don't know that that's a good thesis, but I think it's a much better thesis than the first one, right? And I'll show you why as we look at the other parts. Okay, introductions. I don't know, do you have trouble with introductions? Many of you have trouble writing introductions, or do you not usually write them?
We have to, because it has to be very short and it has to be it has to be very precise and to the point. It should cover the entire gist.
Yes.
So it is a problematic in case when we have to write something very commercial or something.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And it also. Now, the shortness of it, it depends on how long the rest of the writing is. It's got to be proportional to the rest of the writing. So if you're writing a book, for example, the introduction is a whole chapter. But if you're writing a one-page synopsis of your business, then the introduction is maybe just a couple of sentences or a short paragraph. So it's always sort of proportionate. In the textbooks, they always tell you might start with something like this: a question, a story, a quote, or a generalization related to the topic. These are ones we practice with our students. How can you start with a quote? Well, a lot of my Chinese students start with quotations from Confucius. Indian students might start with quotations from Gandhi. That would be nice. They could start with quotations from someone famous, but they can also start with quotations from people they knew. My father once told me, my elder brother once told me. And they're quoting something as well. I see that even in advertising. They often quote, a question gets the reader's attention because that's focused on the reader, that's focused on the audience. So a question makes them think of an answer, and that's how you draw them in. A story, lots of people start with short stories. Probably in business, I don't know if you do that as much. No, although I see it, I read a lot of airplane magazines, and I do see it when you read the president of the airplane, the airline, they always have a column that the president has written, about it. And the thesis of that is, we're a wonderful airline, you should fly us on your next flight. That is the thesis, right? But they often start with a story. When I first came to United Airlines, or what did I fly? Kingfisher Airlines the other day, and it's kind of a little story about something. So it kind of depends on the type of writing you're doing. The generalization is harder to generalize about, but often it might be something like a generalization about the economic situation worldwide, globally, that's affecting markets, they're going up and down, something like that. It's some generalization about the situation. The problems with a lot of these is you have to find one that not only is introducing the topic, but also is grabbing the reader. And a lot of times a quote doesn't necessarily grab a reader, especially the famous quotes. Everybody's heard all the famous quotes before, Maybe a fun